Hey guys, Matt Size here, and today I am hopping back into r/MaliciousCompliance with episode number 15. We're basically at the halfway point of this whole first month for Malicious Compliance. And today I found a very, very special post. If you've been watching movies recently, there was a recent movie called Escape Room Tournament of Champions, and as I was scrolling through the all-time section of this subreddit, I found an escape room themed post. So let's go to it and get into it. Where was it? Here we go. I can't get a refund on my escape room. Okay, let me reschedule then. This might be a rarity for the sub, as I am the one who had the malicious compliance done to by someone else. But I had to respect it and thought it was worthy for this subreddit. We got reverse malicious compliance, which is a rarity. Yeah, it is a rarity. Context: I own an escape room company in a town which borders a pretty touristy area and is very close to an airport. As such, we tend to get a lot of bookings from people all over the UK who are visiting the area for the weekend, or international people coming to do an escape room on the way to the airport. We only take online bookings and don't take walk-ins. Therefore, the site is only really manned whenever we have bookings. As such, our cancellation policy is that we only allow refunds if the cancellation is more than 24 hours before the scheduled start time. If it is between 2 to 4 hours before the start time, we can only reschedule the booking. Now, it's worth mentioning that for the majority of cases, weekdays, we are pretty relaxed with this policy as long as it doesn't cause any big issues to try our best to accommodate a group, as usually I am the one hosting them, so there's not any additional expenses on our part, i.e. staff wages, loss of income from other potential customers. However, the only day where this policy is really relevant is on Saturday, where we are almost always entirely booked from morning to night and have staff members working for us. So any cancelled slots would most likely have been filled by other customers, and we are of course still paying our staff for that time. Although I must say, we have only ever had to enforce this in policy a couple times, as we are usually accommodating to a group in some shape or form. Now on to the malicious compliance. So I get a call earlier today from a gentleman with a thick Scottish accent that was scheduled to come in with his group in around 2.5 hours from the time of the call. The group said that they would be unable to make their booking as they were running late with some other activities or something like that, and asked to reschedule the booking for a later slot. I checked our schedule, but didn't have any slots left for today in any of our rooms. And then he asked for a refund, as they would be returning back to Glasgow tonight and didn't know when they would be down at where there's escape room next time. I told him our policy and that our system only allows reschedules instead of refunds due to the time frame, and explained that given it's a Saturday, we can't refund so close to the time as staff has been arranged, slot would have been booked, etc., etc. Rescheduling wouldn't have worked for them as they wouldn't be in the area anytime soon. After a short pause, he asked if we had any free slots to schedule for next month. I checked the system and offered to move the booking to the same time on 16th November, to which he said, "Yeah, I think that works." I changed the time on the system and informed him he would get an email confirming a new time slot. He replied, "Great, so the booking is more than 24 hours away now, right?" "Yes, it's booked in for 4 weeks' time from today." "Right, so the booking is more than 24 hours away. I won't be able to make it. Can I have a refund?" I paused for a second, trying to process what just happened in my head, and realized he had found a loophole in the system. technically his booking was more than 24 hours away, so he is technically entitled to a refund. I started laughing and congratulated him on beating the system as I processed his refund. Nice! That is hilarious. And as some edits that came up for things in the comments, as I said, these situations are so rare that it never really comes up often enough to become a big issue, as most groups are fine just to reschedule to another day, and we like to accommodate full groups as best we can. Perhaps if it does become more common, we will look into it, but in the past 2 or so years we've been open, I can probably count on one hand how many times it's happened. This is a common malicious compliance, usually done with hotels, doctors, etc. Which is why I recognized it as malicious compliance straight away and thought it would fit here. Honestly, what I've just posted is just the bare bones of the conversation. There was a bit of bantering back and forth, which is why I didn't mind as much issuing the refund, as he seemed like a nice guy. Guess it goes to show, if you're a nice person, you might be more likely to get the rules bent for you than if you're complete Karen. Plus, chances are, next time he's this way, he'll make another booking down the line because of this interaction. This is why I didn't think he was being cheeky by cancelling straight after rescheduling. Yeah, people do come to do an escape room on their way to the airport. Suppose it's a way of squeezing a bit more entertainment into your holiday. Lol. I love how people are questioning, do people really do escape rooms right before their flight? It's like, I want to have some fun and some stress. Like, usually if you're booking an escape room, you're doing it like at least like 5 hours before you get on the flight. So then you have time to get to the airport, do all the security checks, and get onto the plane. Although if you've seen Tournament of Champions, planes aren't that safe either. Was forced to do a task. Got my entire chain of command fired. For obvious reason, I'll be omitting names and anything specific, so my ass is covered. I've been serving in a certain military branch for 5 years, and I'm nearing the end of my contract. So the give a care is completely gone. I am in charge of inventory of specific pieces of equipment. Smaller pieces that are used by many people at my job. From time to time, these pieces disappear. Most of the time, that just means things are misplaced. But we just got out of a certain period where we had many hired contractors at our job that tend to take things. Now, every once in a while, we conduct an inventory of these pieces of equipment for accountability reasons. When we lose things, it looks very bad on my work. More specifically, bad on my bosses. So I prepared the inventory and was startled by the amount of missing pieces. I did everything I needed to and presented the inventory to my boss. He didn't believe we had so many pieces missing and asked me to inventory them again. So I did. Got the same number and put the inventory in his inbox. A few months go by and I get the same thing. There can't be that many. Do another one. So I'm very compliant and do it again and again and again. This drags on over a year and I'm starting to notice something. My boss is about to leave soon and he's deliberately pushing this off to the next guy to cover himself. Come on. So last week I was sleeping since I work nights and I'm woken up. My boss tells me I have to do a specific survey with my co-workers that will get sent up to the head honcho. This survey allows the small guy to have a voice directly to the top. I tell him that I have the night watch, but he doesn't care and demands that I go and do this survey. Fine. Before the survey starts, our boss tells us we need to be completely honest and all these surveys are anonymous. Rad. I wrote down what had been happening with the inventory and directed where they could find the documentation of the done inventories. Fast forward to yesterday. All my bosses are fired now, and I'm reporting to new people who are fixing the issues with the inventory. TLDR, boss was avoiding issues to cover himself. Told his boss during a mandatory survey to cover my ass. Boss got fired. Nice. That's just... like, what do you expect to happen? I can't drive anywhere without permission? Okay, I'll follow that rule. Maliciously. This happened when I was 16 years old and just got my driver's license. My parents had me run to the store to pick up some groceries. I stopped by my friend's house on the way back home for maybe 5 minutes to show him I got a license and I was out driving alone. It was a really fun moment in the life of a 16-year-old. My stepmom, Mary Ann, freaked out. We did not give you permission to drive to Bill's house. We told you to go to the store and that is all. I told Mary Ann and my dad that they had let me drive to Matt's house the day before, so I didn't think it was a big deal. They went unreasonable and laid down the unbendable rule that set up the malicious compliance. You are not allowed to drive anywhere. We do not give you explicit permission for you to drive. Period. End of sentence. Just because you were allowed to do it previously does not ever give you permission another time. Ever. Fast forward 3 days later. My 13-year-old stepsister has been a jerk to me all day, and I'm sick of her BS. She goes quiet for 30 minutes, and then comes out all sickly sweet. Hey Brian, it's time to take me to ballet. I have taken her to ballet 3 days a week since I got my license. It's basically one of my chores. But I see my opportunity to say screw you to all 3 of them at once. Sorry Tina, I'm not allowed to take you to ballet. But the parents didn't tell me to, and I don't want to get in trouble. She screams, she cries, she begs, she threatens. She calls her mum and leaves a message. She calls my dad and leaves a message. Just like Steve Miller says, time keeps on slipping into the future. I'm not sure I'm brave enough to hang on to the bitter end and actually go through with it. I'm shaking, but I know I've got them dead to rights. No callback from the parents, and the clock goes on past the start of her class. Stepmom comes home and Tina runs to meet her. Tina, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be at ballet. I hear Tina tell her rendition of the story, leaving out how miserable she had been, and they go back and forth. Mary Ann comes pounding down the hall and yells, as God is my witness, just wait until your father gets home. I had to stifle a laugh because I never really believed people actually said that. An hour later, Dad comes home and the two of them go running out to meet him and tell him how horrible I was. I wait in my room for the hammer to fall. 10 minutes later, my dad calls down the hall, Brian, would you please come here and talk to us? Okay. Well, Brian, you did it. What do you mean, Dad? You got us all. There's absolutely nothing we can do about it. Okay, let's make this reasonable for everyone. And they did. They agreed that they were over the top. They recognized that Tina wasn't always very nice to me. And they spoke to her about that. I was allowed to have reasonable freedom if I was driving somewhere, since I had good grades and had never been in trouble. I walked back down the hall to my room, back to my parents, with the world's biggest grin on my face. just one big old middle finger. She's like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Just screw you all, people. You gave me an unbendable rule, I gotta follow it to the letter. Doc paid for being by 2 minutes. Enjoy paying massive overtime. I worked in an electricity retailer call center. It was highly unionized, but the management tracked login times to the minute. One incredibly ridiculous thing they did was if you were a minute or two late, they would literally dock your pay by that many minutes. It wasn't really enough for us to really notice, but I'm sure they didn't actually save any money. I mean, if you're 15 minutes late, I could understand not paying. But 3 minutes late? What? Well, eventually the union discovered what they were doing and were completely pissed that they hadn't been consulted about this dick move. This is where their malicious compliance comes in. The union demanded log on and log off times for everyone in the call center. What management had counted on was that all of us would often need to wrap up calls and clear the call queue before the call center could officially close. This often meant that operators would leave several minutes after their shift. On bad occasions, it could be 15 to 20 minutes delay before they could clock off, but mostly it was only a few minutes. The union made management recalculate everyone's pay for the year based on clock on and clock off times. They also pointed out that staying past end of shift triggered penalty rates. It turns out everyone, and I mean everyone, had spent more time wrapping up calls at the end of the day than they were late clocking on. Each of us got paid for lost wages at overtime rates. It cost them a fortune, and they never docked the pay of anyone who was late ever again. Being late by 2 minutes, jeez. Why 2 minutes and you're docking the pay by that many minutes? It's just like, yeah. You played yourself. Like, you're gonna come to expect that sort of thing to happen. But yeah, with that, I'm gonna be ending this episode of Malicious Compliance here. Links will be in the description to my main channel and also this channel. Links also on the screen to my playlist and the last episode of Malicious Compliance. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. A ding, a ding. I'm Mad Scientist. Mad Scientist out.